questions. We do feel your pain, and I have to be honest with you, one of the reasons that they gave is they felt unsafe. For myself, I find that very, offensive. I hate the fact that a group that doesn't know this community thinks that we're immediately gonna jump on somebody and be brutal. That's not who we are. All we really want is questions and answers, and what we're giving you tonight is what we legally can do as a city and some of the issues that have happened with BC housing. And how we got here, there's some background on how we got here. And one of the things that we need to do is we need to form a group called a neighborhood watch, call it shelter watch, where we have some from the city, a large group from your areas, working with BC Housing monthly to see numbers, to make sure security is correct, to make sure the gates are done, to make sure the curfews are being followed. The need to do this all the way through as a group. We need to get those answers, and we need to be on top the whole time. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to recognize that we are on the unceded territories of the capital city people, and then we're going to do a little bit of an introduction. So Councillor Petrosi at the far end, Councillor Egan, Councillor Hitchard, CEO Cynthia White. I will save this gentleman for a minute. CO Linda Brick, Councillor Charney, Councillor Baxter, and Councillor Owen. One of the things that we're not going to be doing here is really being heavy on introductions and stuff, because we do want to get to questions so you can get some answers. So we're going to move along, and that's why I think probably we're going to have a little more meeting. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hand you over to our moderator, and he's going to give you a rundown of how this is going to work. This is Mr. Mike Simpson.
Thank you, Mayor Getz. Thanks for the opportunity to be here. So folks, I'm not from the community, I'm from Kamloops, but I've been asked to moderate lots of meetings, facilitate meetings, so I've been asked so that the staff and council can participate and answer questions as well. That's really all my role is here tonight, is to keep things on time, on topic, and of course and go over the rules of engagement, which I'm going to read in a minute. There was a request from the front for those of us speaking to stand so they can hear us better. So I'm going to do that. I'm just going to grab all my papers. Now, I'm not going to stand in the light of the projector. So I'm going to take some real estate at the end of the table here. That's basic. Okay, so lots of interest in this topic, and as the mayor said, the real purpose of tonight is to answer your questions. Unfortunately, BC Housing isn't here. City staff and city council will do their best to do that. What I'd like to go over is the rules of engagement. They're posted on the door when you came in. And the purpose for this is just to make sure that we have a civilized, well-run meeting where people can express their questions and points of view, without feeling intimidated. So a few of the rules I'll just go brief. Number one is follow the chair's instructions. So the chair is your guest tonight. Respect the authority of the meeting chairperson, myself as the moderator who's delegated. Number two, offer a solution. We know there's there's been some concerns and questions raised already, but if you can, when you come to the mic, when it is your turn later on, if you've got a solution or an idea, city staff would love to hear that. Number three, respectful communication. Speak respectfully, even if you disagree. There's lots of different opinions on this, and please avoid any personal attacks either on individuals or on groups of people in the nature of what we're talking about, and any disrespectful language. Number four, listen attentively. To your neighbors, your colleagues, your city council. Please, pay attention to others and give everyone that chance to share their thoughts and ask questions. Number five is stay on topic. We're talking specifically here tonight about the BC Housing proposed shelter at the Knights Inn on McLeod Avenue. That's a very acute issue. There's lots of related issues, including laws, other uses and things like that. But let's stay focused really on that topic of the BC housing now, a week ago. Number 6, time management. So when it comes to questions, you can come to the microphone at the front, or one of the staff, if you're not able to, they can bring you a microphone. But you'll have 2 minutes. You ask a question, make a comment, or express interest in being involved. We'll go over that a little bit more as we get closer. And Linda is going to be talking that. As you can imagine, there's a lot of people here who might want to say something tonight, so we're going to be strict on that 2 minutes. Please no side conversations. You know, there's a lot of people in this room and a lot of background noise, so please keep the side conversations down. Please be open-minded as well. This is a tough issue. So be open-minded to hearing different perspectives. No abusive or threatening language, you know, reiterating what I said before, you know, no personal attacks. And despite how we started at the beginning, please, I would encourage there to be no cheering, no jeering, no booing. So don't applaud if you hear something like, don't boo, you don't like it. You know, it just disrupts the meeting, and it's, so please try to avoid that. So I'm going to suggest that we follow these rules. We've got a big group here tonight. I operate on 3 strikes and we're out. So if you can't abide by that, then we might have to leave. If everyone in the room can't abide by it, then you might have to postpone the meeting as well. So in order to get your questions answered and your concerns raised, please let's all try to abide by those rules. So next, on the agenda, I want to turn it over to Cynthia White, CAO, and she's got a short presentation on the role of local government in social housing.
Good evening, everyone. So again, I'm Cynthia White, Chief Administrative Officer for the city. I want to start this with, I live in Diamond Vale. I've lived in Diamond Vale since I arrived here just over a year ago. So this is my neighborhood as well. So I hope that you understand my own perspective to this, and take that on with you to what's happening. So we want to share a little bit with you about the process that we experience with BC Housing and our role in housing. So housing and homelessness, housing and homelessness is a provincial mandate. It is not a municipal mandate. So we've seen in recent times, due to the housing crisis in BC in particular, that there has been a push for municipalities to take more of a frontline role in housing and helping to develop affordable, accessible housing for residents. That is a very new process. Normally what a municipality does in regards to housing is land use planning and permitting. Right, setting up utilities for subdivisions. That is the role that the municipal government has played traditionally. But we are servants of the provincial government. So under the Constitution, the federal government and the provincial governments have constitutional rights. Municipal governments do not have constitutional rights. We only do what we are mandated to do by the provincial government. So it limits our scope. And that's a good thing, because in reality, we can't do everything that people need us to do. But as the government interacts with the community on a daily basis, unlike the provincial and federal governments, we are the people that provide those direct services. And I often say in council, you know, we have core services, water and sewer. We don't have those things. We don't have a town, you know, the city has to evacuate, and roads and waste collection. Those are our core services. Other services that we provide are safety. So we are the people who work to contract the RCMP. They come out of part of their contract comes out of our taxation. As well, we provide recreation services and those types of facilities. Housing is not one of those things. So we're in a position where we know that there are housing requirements that we have to start thinking about. We have a homeless population, or I want to be more politically correct, a population of people experiencing homelessness. That is a national crisis. It is occurring everywhere. I'm from the Northwest Territories, from a town of 2,500 people. We have homelessness there. And no shelter, so imagine what those people will do when it's -50. Right, so it's occurring across this country. We are required, based on precedent from a court case in 2008, Adams versus Victoria, that we must provide a place for people to shelter if there is not adequate shelter spaces. So when you see people camping in McCullough Park as part of our camping bylaw, we are required by judicial precedent to allow that to happen. So we can have a shelter with BC Housing financially supporting that shelter to allow people to sleep indoors. Or we can continue to have outdoor camping with the risk that people will be camping in the winter outdoors and all the health risks that go with that. So it becomes a complicated situation. We have been working with BC Housing for the last several months as we learned that they were going to be closing down the shelter because of health issues in the shelter at Desert Inn. It has been a challenge for us to agree with them on a site. Council has really stressed that there are places that, you know, that we have to have more consideration on. When we learned that they had signed a lease with the Merritt Inn, after the rumors in the community started, I had to call BC Housing and ask them specifically if they had signed a lease with the Merritt Inn, because in our communications with the owner, there was no intention of that owner to sign this lease. So we were not aware that this was happening and that the lease had been signed until people started calling the mayor about it. So it's a bit of a surprise to us. We were not really aware that this was the site that they were going to. And council had made it fairly clear that they were looking for a better plan for sheltering than what we had at the Desert Inn. And so as we move forward, many people had questions about the zoning. And ultimately, no matter how we have that building zoned, precedent has been set by two cases, one on Vancouver Island and one in Southern Interior, that BC Housing, their operators, and any private lands that they lease are immune to municipal zoning bylaws. That means they do not have to, because we are servants of the provincial government, they can override our bylaws. We only exist because they allow us to exist as a community. And that's the way the levels of government work, right? This is how government works across the country. So it is a very complicated situation. And then we add in the fact that there are a lot of human rights issues, there are safety issues, there's miscommunication and misinformation in the community, there are concerns, there's a lot of things going on here, but ultimately, we don't provide shelter. But if we do not support shelter in our community, then we will have and would be required to provide camping. And there are current precedents set where encampments, permanent encampments, have been allowed to remain in place as long as they've been kept clean. Right? So there are cases in which injunctions to remove encampments have been denied by the courts because as long as they are kept clean and are not unruly, they are providing shelter in a place where there is inadequate shelter. So there are a lot of complicated factors around provincial powers, as well as in the last 2 decades, judicial precedent that's been set for various court cases that we have to navigate. And those impact the recommendations that the staff can make to council, and they impact the decisions that council can make as their elected officials. So that's kind of the situation that we are in. I think that Mike is going to go on and try and review some of the questions that were submitted prior to the meeting, and hopefully he'll get some of the answers from that as well.
Okay, thank you, Cynthia. So if you have any questions on what Cynthia just noted, when we get to the question period, you can ask any follow-up questions then. So last week, I believe it was on Thursday, staff invited questions, when the news release and when this was released from DC Housing. There were 70 questions that were compiled by staff. What I have is they condensed them together in terms of similar questions and similar answers. Now copies of these were made available on the side table. I don't think there's enough for everyone in the room. So some people might have this, it's a sideways printout, about 3 pages long. This will be made available on the city website and on the Facebook page as well. So this is the summary of questions that you submitted up until yesterday, today. Okay, right up till today. So I'm gonna go over them. Sorry, you have to listen to me for a bit. On the topic of bylaw, the question was, in regards to camping within the city, the camping bylaw as well as the city's nuisance bylaw, what is the status? The answer is tents are allowed in Qualla Park overnight only. Tents must be packed up each morning and reset up each evening. Anyone can enjoy the park during the day. There are washrooms available for campers at Lions Memorial Park from 8 AM to 8 PM each day. That was one of the questions. Another one around camping was, will there be a fence put up around the Qualla Park? The answer is additional fencing is being considered as well as other camping options. On the topic of cleanliness, who will clean up the mess when the encampments are gone? The answer there is encampments on private property is up to the property owners. If it is an overnight stay in the park, city staff will be in the park each morning to clean up. So on the topic, there's a number of questions around safety. So I'll read the common question and the answer. If there is an increase in crime that we assume is associated with the shelter, can we invoice for security, insurance, operating costs? Who will pick up shopping carts and garbage? How do we deal with loitering? So the answer to those questions is, this is something that should be discussed with DC Housing. Although we have been informed it is not within their mandate. Garbage on private property is the responsibility of the property owner. Bylaw will continue to patrol the community to ensure compliance with the bylaws. If someone is on your private property, please call the RCMP. Next question, remember folks, the no cheering during. When would it be appropriate to phone the RCMP? So the answer there is anytime you witness a crime being committed, or if you feel unsafe or threatened by an individual. If you don't call, nothing changes. Next question about safety. If we have someone breaking into our outbuildings and we have it on camera, we will call the police. If they cannot attend, we have the person on camera, what will be done? Do we as taxpayers, homeowners have any rights? The answer there is you should always call the RCMP to report break-ins. Provide video footage to the RCMP, it's a criminal matter. Do we have enough police officers to patrol the areas? The answer there is there are 17 full-time city-funded RCMP officers. And I just want to note too that we have Sergeant Rhoda here. He might be able to answer questions. He's offering later on if there are questions directly for him. Another safety question. What measure will be in place to ensure there is not increased crime in the area caused by residents or visitors of the shelter? The answer here is all residents have a right to move around freely. If you see a crime being committed on your property or someone else's, call the RCMP. If individuals would like to have a crime prevention through environmental design assessment of their home or business, they can reach out to Community Policing Coordinator to book their free appointment. And there's a phone number there as well. That will be on the website tomorrow. Oh, can someone turn the lights back on if they hit them? Next question on shelter general. If conditions are not followed by the night's end, what does the city have in place to deal with it? So this is an important one around the operation of the new proposed shelter. If the conditions are not followed, what does the city have in place to deal with it? Will BC Housing just say we can do whatever we want, we're the government? So the answer here is the Knights Inn will have to follow the same bylaws as the rest of businesses in the community. There will be a regular check-in meetings with BC Housing. The city will establish a community liaison group to liaise with BC Housing. The city is also establishing a list of security requests they would like to see on site. So this is again one of the topics that we'd like your input on tonight, if you're interested in being on that committee. Next question. Why will the new shelter be better than Desert Hills? And why Nicola Valley Shelter and Support Society, why will they manage it better than the old one? The answer provided here is in our discussions with BC Housing, they will be set up in a more typical fashion. The operating procedures and training for staff will be standardized. Next question, since there doesn't seem to be many left at the camp behind the Desert Inn, where will they be coming from? The answer here is we have multiple encampments throughout the city that we are monitoring and trying to clean up. Next question, did BC Housing basically say, we are government, we can do whatever we want? The answer here is no, they meet the zoning bylaw requirements. However, recent court cases on Vancouver Island and the Southern Interior have resulted in judgments which identify BC Housing and its contractors as being immune to zoning bylaws. The next question, will there be an 8-foot fence around the whole perimeter of the property, including going to the road line on both sides of Knights and Menzies Street side and Douglas Street side? The answer here is the city is continuing to work with BC Housing on security measures, including the fence. We have not yet seen the plans. Next, what recourse will the city have if it turns into another Desert Inn? The answer here is BC Housing has confirmed they will be implementing a good neighbor policy and informed us they will be a good partner in this relationship. We didn't rule out laughter, so okay. Did anyone in City Hall know this was happening and not advise mayor or city council? That is one of the many rumors swirling around. So the answer here is mayor and council had a presentation from BC Housing at a council meeting in June, which council indicated that they did not support a low barrier shelter in the community. Prior to that meeting and after that meeting, BC Housing had been in discussions about possible locations, and mayor and council provided their feedback. Knights Inn came to us as a potential location, but the owner of the property advised the city they were not interested in becoming the shelter. Administration and mayor and council were not aware of the lease being signed and had to reach out to BC Housing once rumors started circulating in the community. So similar to what Cynthia mentioned. Couple of questions left, folks, then it'll be your turn. Has the city of Merritt made any kind of a deal with cities in the Vancouver area to house their homeless population? For example, them being given a bus ticket and told to go to Merritt to be looked after. The answer here is the city of Merritt is not responsible for shelters, so there is no reason we would have such an agreement. All citizens of Canada have the right to travel and relocate. We cannot control that, it's a human right. Was the city paid $2 million to let this happen? This is another rumor swirling around. No, but had we would be able to offer additional supports to the community. We specifically asked for help with bylaw and cleaning, and were advised that it is outside of the scope of their budget. Second last question, will the city ensure that there are no encampments outside the hotel, prostitution, open drug use? Answer, people will continue to be able to camp if there are insufficient shelter spaces. BC Housing has advised that there will be no camping on the shelter property. prostitution and drug use are illegal activities. I call the RCMP to report. Okay, and then the last question that was collected over the last week. Does the city of Merritt have any intention of taking action, legal or otherwise, against BC Housing to stop this project from coming to fruition in a family residential neighborhood like the city of Penticton did and were successful doing? Or alternately, is there a plan in place to push back and be involved alongside the residents of Merritt, like Grand Forks, when they successfully stopped the BC Housing decision? So the answer here is, City of Penticton did not have a successful legal case. We have spoken to administration in Grand Forks, and we are asking for similar procedures at the shelter. Okay, so those are the summation of 70 questions that you submitted over the last week. Cynthia, did you want to speak to anything from BC Housing? Before we go to questions from you, I just want to see if Cynthia wants to finish that.
Sorry, I'm just grabbing it. Thank you. As the mayor indicated, BC Housing was unable to attend for a variety of reasons that they've given us over the last few days. One, it's too close to the election, to the writ being dropped. Two, they don't find community conversations to be the most effective way to communicate. And they were concerned about the safety of the staff member. I'm concerned about my safety, so we do have some answers from BC Housing around what we can expect to this shelter to look like. And ultimately, I'll just do a bit of a summary here around this because I think some of these questions will continue to come up and I'll be able to draw on this set of answers to answer some of the questions. But the Desert Inn was not a typical shelter. It was put in place as an emergency shelter for people experiencing homelessness during COVID. It is not an ideal location, it is not an ideal style of building. Clearly having a bar in a building without a shelter for people who are experiencing homelessness and may have mental health or addictions issues, not a good choice. That has resulted in, a place where they could not put in the security that they would typically, or what I'm told, would typically be available in shelter of this style. So what we're looking to see from them is a 6-foot fence all the way around the building, all sides. It will be a chain link fence. This is what we're told, although they have not yet submitted a request for a permit because it is a variance to our bylaw. And we've requested that they follow the rest of our bylaws. So it will have privacy slats, and we've asked them to do something perhaps a little attractive on the outside, some sort of mural or landscape design to make it a bit more attractive. They have indicated that there will be 24/7 on-site support for staff. We're led to believe that is more than a typical complement for a shelter of this type. And we're asking one of them to have specific training around security. That fence will have the the gate will only be accessible to shelter residents or service providers and will be manned by staff or personed by staff. There will be programming available to residents on site. They will be asked to participate in the upkeep of the building and the grounds. There's adequate washing facilities, there are laundry facilities. There will be weekly checks of rooms for cleanliness and safety. So there are, they're providing us with a set of, a bit of an understanding that there will be more at this shelter than there was at the previous shelter. And I know that a lot of us can only imagine that shelter, right? And what I don't know what the appropriate word is, I have other words I'd like to use, but that was a disaster for the community. And so they're really trying to drive home to us that this is going to be a more strict with a curfew. They have to sign a contract to be at the shelter. They will be implementing a good neighbor bylaw policy that aligns with our good neighbor bylaw, which will include noise control, cleanliness of the site. And we will be looking to enforce that through bylaw. Just today, we noticed that there's a CCAT, which is not permitted, so we immediately took action on that. And have asked them to remove it because it's not permitted. We'll open the questions shortly.
Well, before you do.
Well, we are under the impression it's open as not the hotel has been open for a long time, but as a COVID shelter.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's what BC Housing tells us.
Well,
So we'll, yeah, I just wanted to tell you that there are, at the last point of count by BC Housing, there are 67 people experiencing homelessness in Merritt. Of these, 84% have been in the community, identify themselves as having been in the community for more than a year. 68% identify having been in the community for more than 5 years. 22% have always been in the community, and 64% identify as being Indigenous. They will not be permitted camping. Sheltering is not meant to be long-term, and this type of situation is meant to support transition. You know, what you know about substance use issues is that you cannot overcome those issues, or other, you know, manage your mental health issues if you do not have shelter. So the housing first model is a very prevalent model in which, you know, you have to have that basic safety. And you have to have access to food, and you have to access to shelter in order to be able to change any of the other health and wellness indicators. Yeah, so I think that I think some of the neighbors have had direct communication with Shelter Society, the operators, and have been given information about who to call, when to call, in the last few days. And I think if anything else comes up in the questions and I can find an answer in this, I will refer to it.
Thank you, Cynthia, and I think actually there's some copies of those questions floating around as well. I think, for, that might be out there. Okay, folks, so now it's your turn. So, we have just under an hour and a half. We, as the mayor noted, you know, there's a lot of interest in this. We are gonna wrap up by 8 o'clock. So if you're able to come into the mic, please come to the mic. If you want to raise your hand, and if you can't come to the mic, one of the staff will, bring a microphone to you. Yeah, just a reminder, folks, so when you come to the microphone, just a reminder, please note disrespectful language, we talked on the issue. Please state your name and your address, and, you know, because we want to just get input from people from the city of Merritt. And keep in mind, what we're looking to hear is how do you want to be involved? Do you have an additional question that wasn't already answered? Anything for what was already said here tonight? And remember, for the audience, no cheering, no cheering. Sir, go ahead.
Is this on? Okay. Some of you might know me, I'm Derek. I run Cactus. So I'm not gonna have any questions. I'm gonna give you some facts. It is a disaster over there. We are working with the city and the RCMP to clean it up. Just give us time. The health problems upstairs are only upstairs, not downstairs. We've been clear. So any all the private messages that have been sent, that's done. But to let you all know, the reason why I don't see any shelter people here or BC Housing is when I tried to attempt to remove people or ask people to move or whatever, I was also threatened by staff of the shelter. So I'm just letting you know that there are some ones that are people that work there that are lying to you guys about what they're gonna do. Every time we had a concern or a flood, they took forever to come to us and they didn't care. And when I finally got to talk to the people in charge, they didn't hear about any of the complaints that I put in for the BC Housing or the shelter people. Just while they were out in the cabin a couple weeks ago, I was threatened with gang violence if I didn't stop telling them that they have to leave. They are being trespassed now. So I'm just letting you guys know, maybe they are gonna do things differently, but they sure the hell didn't do anything when we asked them to. So I'm really sorry that Dineville, you guys have to put up with us and the community, and the mayor's right, I think. Maybe we should do a community watch, if anybody's interested, I will start it, but that's all I have to say, just really. We're gonna do our best to clean up the trash, just like they said, it is our responsibility. And just to let you know, all the stuff they threw in that garbage, that BC Housing is supposed to throw and put in the dump, now are all in those tents. And guess who has to clean that up this week? This guy. So I'm really sorry this is happening in our community, but, that's all I have to say, but I just wanted to kill some of those rumors that were.
Okay, thank you, sir, that's your time, your photo and that. So remember, no clapping, no applause, no breathing. Thank you.
Yeah, Philly, I just have a question, if was it not the owners of the Desert Inn that made the contract with the BC?
Yes, he did, but,
Okay, then why are you responsible, shouldn't it be the?
well, he is, but I'm the one that's gonna have to clean it up. Cause he's not here to do it, so.
But it is coming out of his.
Yeah, it's coming to put the BC Housing through all the stuff that was upstairs into that dumpster. So all the homeless people took all those, all the foosball tables, everything out, and they're now in those tents. And now when they leave, the BC Housing doesn't have to pay for that now, the owner does, because they left that dumpster there on purpose so they could take all that crap out of there. I watched.
Who left the dumpster there? He's
That
not-
the BC Housing and the shelter, it's a big bounce dumpster, it's still there,
Okay,
it
well,
was
they
all
should
full and
send
now
the
it's
bill to
empty.
BC Housing.
but it's BC Housing or whoever.
Mayor, yes, or Cynthia, anything to add to that comment?
We have been working closely with the owner, and I'm sorry that you have to do a lot of cleanup. And we've been pushing BC Housing, to get this done in a timely fashion. We were trying to be, empathetic to the needs of the residents who were living in that encampment because there was no shelter. But now it's become a very unsafe situation, not just for them, but for our staff, bylaw officers and the RCMP, and we just can't have, and I guess the staff of the building, which I consider, thank you for bringing that forward. So we are working really hard to get that cleaned up by the end of the day Friday.
So Derek, I just want to say thank you for what you've had to endure for the last 2 years. I appreciate everything you've done. I appreciate that. Yeah, we tried to help. We know the fact that there's a violence factor over there. Right now, our bylaw officers are in slash vests and they're being trained to carry batons and bear spray. This is where we're going now with this. And so just to also rebuild today, there was a TNRD and TNHD in Kamloops today. Kamloops is having this exact same meeting next week. Same thing is happening there. It's happening in Prince George and it's happening in Richmond.
What's that, BC Housing not gonna show up?
I hope they do. Well, I hope they do. So anyways, Derek, I just want to say thank you and thank you for the
You
update.
guys for having this meeting, thank you guys.
They're allowing 16-month trial being their resident, all of them in the Diamondville area. I spent 30 years in the public service, 20 of them in an elected position. And it was really shocking to hear, Cynthia, you say that we are the servants of the government. It's the other way around. Government is our servant. We are. People, you accept a done deal, any contract or any lease has an escape clause due to extenuating circumstances, and right here is the extenuating circumstances. And I think this is going to be the beginning of this. And you know what, I guess I can't call BC Housing, and I won't call BC Housing the minister of the premier powers, because somebody should have been here from that entity, and I used to belong to that. Not anymore, as you know. This is all done in secret, supposed to be a new democratic party that is in the government. Where's the democracy? Where there's no public hearing, no process, none whatsoever, and now we find out that in June you had a meeting. Don't you think that the public had a right to have this meeting in June, so that we knew what was coming on? You know, I'm telling you, I'm getting phone calls left, right, and center from residents and people who live in the neighborhood They're concerned and people are beginning to, where residents think about arming themselves. Through the help. Security cameras and weapons, etc. as well, because you're fearing for the safety, because most of the people are drug addicts, and you know what happens with people when they're really high. And you know, this is not the way to be going about doing it. There is an election coming up, and it's like the government says they can't go out here because there's an election coming up. This is an election, and I think we should all be getting organized in the election and hold all the candidates that are gonna come here for all candidates forum to their feet to the fire, and if we don't raise a lot of hell, this thing, as council authorities made it clear, is a non deal, we have to stop this.
Okay, Mr. Lally, that's time.
I'm going to remind everybody that this is an information session, it is not a political rally, so please be aware, I'm sorry, but if you'd like to get through all the questions, this is a non-political issue, we're talking about this shelter, and you can all be their family about that. I would like to say the meeting in June, the presentation was at a public council meeting, which is available online. At which time, council told BC Housing they were not in support of a low barrier shelter in our community. They were not in support of a low barrier shelter in our community, which is essentially what this is. Maybe it's a bit higher barrier than the Desert Inn was, but council was very clear to BC Housing. When we talk about being servants of the provincial government, Mr. Lally is incorrect. Municipal governments are subservient to the provincial government. That is the formation of government. That is how government works. It is the law. So they mandate what we do and don't do. We're not saying I'm not saying you're my servant. I'm saying that we must abide by the legislation of the provincial government. That is our requirement as a municipality. That's all I'm telling you.
Good evening, as follows, for all of them. I understand staff is here tonight. I'd like to hear from staff, sir. Thank you.
You have a question?
What would you like the staff sergeant to respond to?
I would like to find out what detachment's doing. I know that they don't like to talk too much about the actual things they're doing, but I'd like a little background from staff. I'm sorry to put you on the hook, staff, but I think it's a big enough problem in this town that we need to hear from you. Thank you, sir.
So unfortunately, I can't have an opinion on the shelter. That's just the reality of it. As the police, we can't control who comes in and out of our community. And that's the unfortunate part. So when we have people that come in this community that commit crime and have records, say from Ontario, Winnipeg, Alberta, communities all around BC, we just have to deal with them. And so we have actually seen a significant increase this year in property crime in Merritt. If that anybody's surprised at that. We've actually solved a lot of property crime in there this year. So we have, recently we saw 5 break-in enters that happened in the community last year. Unfortunately, and I'm gonna put their feet to the fire and they're not here, but our court system sucks. Yes. And that's the reality. We're being really clear to police and the public that they don't care about property. And as much as the provincial government has said that they want to keep violent offenders in jail, they don't have the authority to change the government to do that. What they have the authority to do is to rally the federal government and ask for change in legislation, but unless that change comes, offenders are going to be out on the streets. And that's what we're seeing. We are getting people in custody, putting them before the courts, and they get released right away. And now we're just dealing with these people back on the streets committing crime again. And so we're doing the best we can. Our members are very busy. I can tell you, I've submitted more reports to Crown Council this year than we ever have in Merritt, and we're 8 months in. So I'll be curious to see what we get at the end of the year, but we care about this community. We all live in this community, the members that work here. We want to see this community get better. And we want you guys to report stuff to us, and I recognize that oftentimes your files would sit in our queue for 4 or 5 hours. And it's because our officers are dealing with violent crimes, or sexual assaults, or domestic assaults, and they can't get to the property crime leader way. Please understand, we care about them, and please report the statistics, and we want to solve them.
And there was a question from the audience, if someone with a roving microphone.
So just a quick question, Harry, Mr. Lally. The CAO, is well versed in what is and what isn't, and she's not lying about the situation. She's telling people what the actual situation is. So it's unfortunate that you don't agree that our CAO is not lying, and it's kind of offensive to say that she is, so. We'll give you some time later, Harry, but please.
I understand anything about her line. And she just doesn't know who's a public servant and who's the one who's getting it.
Okay, thank you, Harry. We go back to legislation. Yeah, okay,
I really encourage, let's try to be respectful.
let's go on.
There's a question in the middle there, there was a woman who put her hand up right away. Wondering if she's still there. Oh, you're in line now. Right, so let's.
Next up in line.
Remember, say your name and address, please.
Hi, I'm Shirley Caldwell. I live at 2672 Granite Avenue, about a block away from the new homeless shelter. I did hear that, I'm not happy about it. We have 4 kids in it that have to get to school, and we'll have to walk near it to get to school every day, so we'll be driving a lot. The other thing I wanted to comment on is there's a rumor going around that this homeless camp that they're getting rid of at the Desert Inn is going to be moving to our area along with the homeless shelter. I'm very concerned about that. They said that it'll be right across from the mailbox, right on Douglas. I want to know if that rumor is true. And if it could be true, if they can just up and leave, because you said they can move wherever they want to. So I want to know what's going on there, because I'm feeling very unsafe about all of this. There's no security in the Kansas City. They have free reign over everything.
So we have been assured by BC Housing that there will be no tenting on site. The only place that people are legally allowed to tent overnight or shelters overnight is the Quality Park. We're also evaluating whether or not that's the most appropriate place. Is there a better place in the city for that? Is there a place that's a little bit more out of the way? I have asked BC Housing to actually contact the school district to see if the school has concerns that they need addressed. Apparently BC Housing didn't think that was something we needed to do until we asked them to do it. So we are trying to get them to step up to the plate and make this a safer, better situation than we've seen in the past. But we are currently dealing with, I think, 5 camping areas that we're trying to get decamped and cleaned up throughout the community. So it's we can do only what we can do. I mean, obviously, we'd like to be able to decamp everybody every day, but as we've heard from the detachment, there are risks involved with being around some of these individuals who are higher risk people. Not everyone. I'm not painting everyone with the same brush. I don't think that's fair, but there are people who may be carrying weapons. And so our bylaw officers cannot interact with those people. They're not trained for this. So we need the support of the RCMP. But as Sergeant Rhoda just mentioned, they have a lot of files, right? They have a lot of work they're doing. So helping us decamp people is a priority, but if they're dealing with an emergent situation, they can't release staff to help us.
Is that city property on Douglas across from the mailbox?
I believe it is. I recently did a review of where city properties are, and I don't believe that is. So unless somebody's privately,
So if they move in there, they can be removed.
if it's private property, that somebody moves in there onto private property, the property owner should call the RCMP to have those people removed, because they are trespassing.
And if it's not, if it's city property,
We will remove them because they are not allowed to camp there.
Good, let's put it on your mind. Go ahead, man.
So I'm Judy West, I own Best Value West, which is half a block for the shelter, and I live right across the street, and I now have a 10-year-old that doesn't want to walk to school. And I spend my days dealing with vandalism in this town because of homelessness, and you keep referring to it as homelessness. And I dare say everyone in this crowd has sympathy with homelessness. We don't want to see anyone on the street if they're actively trying to better themselves. And the problem with that shelter, that hellhole at the Desert Inn, is the drugs and substance abuse. And all this documentation, it speaks about this is not a long-term solution. This is to help people move into permanent stable housing. You mentioned that it's the first step in getting their life together. I would like to know, and I would like BC Housing to answer the question, what is the success rate of getting people out of that Desert Inn shelter and into the so-called goal of this shelter? The goal is permanent stable housing. Has it been successful? What's the success rate from the Desert Inn? Has anyone from there actually made something where they have got into a permanent place? The other question I have is, you drive down the hill from Kelowna and you see the Souris Murphy pipeline plant being dismantled. Was that ever considered as a homeless site? It's perfect. It's perfectly set up to house tons of people. It's way out of town. You mentioned, Cynthia, the location of the Desert Inn not being ideal. Well, hello, Knights Inn is half a block from a notorious drug house that has had murdered SWAT team attendants. And you're there.
Clear here, we did not pick the Knights Inn. The Knights Inn was picked by BC Housing, okay? The Studio Camp is a private property. It doesn't belong to anybody in this room. It's private. There's also, First Nations involvement with that camp as well. It's not our camp.
Was it ever considered
Yes,
as
it
an
was.
option?
Yes,
Because
it was.
what, like, it's got a huge, like,
It's,
you can't walk into town.
It's not it's not our property. We can't just say to somebody, we want to take your property. So that's why we're saying, in order for this to work, and we're talking about this tonight, is, yeah, it's gotta work better than the Desert Inn, 100%. But we have to get involved to make sure that we hold BC Housing accountable for it. I mean, if we just go with everything you see in this paper, we're gonna have this, and this, and we don't make sure they do, they won't do it. You know it as well as I do. So we have to come together. We have to have a liaison. We have to meet with them. We also have to meet with the minister at some point, and that's where we come. I mean, we have, as council, we have to meet with the minister and say, you know, something has to change here. We can't continue to have this going. I just came back from Kelowna. People are literally living in the dumpsters now. So when they go to dump the dumpsters, they knock on it, people come out, they dump the dumpsters and people jump back in. This is where we're going with this. There has to be crown land that has been taken over so we can get these people somewhere where they're not in our communities. They can have a community of their own and get better. Handicapped people and mentally handicapped people should never have been allowed to be on the streets to suffer at the hands of people. They should never have. And here we are. And here we are. So that is where you need to now let your voice be heard as your candidates at the next vote. When we're down to UBCM next week, we're not meeting hardly with anybody that is in city government. We're meeting with them, we're meeting with John Rustad and his group to get our situation across on what we want to see, how we want this community to go, what we need to happen. This whole snowflake mentality that everybody gets a ribbon in a race. Why are we here? That's why we're here because there's absolutely no situation where we, as taxpayers, we pay taxes for all of this. We expect more than this. We expect the BC Housing to be here. It is unconscionable that they feel scared that they can't come here and take some beating. Yeah, they better come take some, because they put us in this position. So now we're taking the beating for them, which I'm more than happy to take. I'm married, I have a mother-in-law, I get yelled at all the time, it's fine. But the point of the matter is, we as a council are going to be acting on your behalf to make sure this shelter is everything that they said it is going to be. We worked with Grand Forks. They are not successful, and they don't have a shelter, but they have rules that they have mandated that now we don't have to say, hey, can we do this? That rule's already there, we're gonna do it. So we want locals to own there. One of the other things, and I'm not gonna preach too much longer because you've got questions. One of the things that we're gonna be talking about in DCM is the 2.5 decrement has got to be removed. We cannot allow people to carry any drug they want and then expect things to get better. So we have a resolution at UBCM this year. It was passed at Silva 100%. It will be passed at UBCM to have the 2.5 decrim removed. That will change the area of what we're doing. We've got several people in this town who are not from here. They're from Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Edmonton, because they can't carry in their provinces. Well, they can here. I saw right.
Okay, Cynthia, you do that. The question, that man was a line behind you, so let's.
I think, Councillor, you just, I don't know, over there said, we proposed that site and BC Housing wouldn't consider it.
Can we know why? And can we have an answer to the question of the success rate of the desert?
I will.
That's what you're basing this.
We will email this, I will email them with a request tomorrow for any kind of stats on any success rates of sheltering.
As far as I'm aware, Medicine Hat was one out of town that
Okay,
was great, so
thanks, Matt.
I would like to know why.
So, next question. Reminder for everybody, you know, panelists as well, let's keep it focused on the topic of the sheltering and okay, Matt.
I can appreciate the passion in the room for sure. My name's Deanna Holmgren, I live in Diamond Vale on McLean Place, and I actually don't feel safe in my house number, thank you very much. I just have a couple of statements. One of them is, this is one of the main entrances to our community. Is it an ideal location? Question mark. Funded housing, for example, shelters, comes with rules, regulations, which are considered barriers. Our current unhoused population in Merritt chooses barrier-free housing. They like tent cities. They're stating there's gonna be no tents at this current place. No, because they're gonna be all around it, because they're not allowed in it. As well as a bit on the basis of not following the rules, the barriers. Don't worry, I'm watching my time. How do we see this being any different? It states in the paper that the current tents are on private property and it's up to the private property to get it moved and have it removed. The RCMP have already told City Hall that it's dangerous to go in there. So we expect private property owners to remove tents from their property and put ourselves at danger. Roaming freely during daytime hours. How are we supposed to report our property crimes when we're at work and we're at school? And I've got 25 seconds. Thank you for listening.
Comments or responses? Okay, sir.
Hi, Ron Ranger. I've been a resident for 6 years. This isn't a homeless problem. This is a dual diagnosis problem. It's drugs and it's mental illness, and nothing's being done to address that. There've been studies, one after another, you can look it up. Raven, Santa Clara, California, giving people homes does not change crime rates, death rates, or hospitalization rates in people that are in this situation. We're just giving a carrot and not a stick. They need to be somehow brought into drug rehabilitation. They need to be policed closely so that when they're using drugs openly on the street, which happens every day, that they're taken at least reprimanded by the RCMP. Just to allow them to fall asleep on the road with their drug kit in front of them is not acceptable. And that's what's gonna happen at this new shelter. It's just gonna be people driving into Merritt on the main road, seeing people passed out with drug kits in front of them, and nothing's gonna change. It's a carrot for them. They've got a place to sleep that's nice, and they're gonna be equally as criminally active, and death rate's gonna be the same, and they're gonna be going to hospital just the same rate. People are looking at one part of the problem and not the whole problem.
Okay, Councilor, you're like, respond, please.
I appreciate your concern. I think it's more of a provincial concern at this time.
And it was on Global this morning, Prime Minister Premier Eby was on there announcing, or no, it wasn't the Premier, it was, Mayor from the Lower Mainland was talking about, Essendale, or the other name for Essendale, reopening, Riverview, yeah, reopening that, but we. Brad West, thank you. Yeah, so I mean, that is something that should be coming up at the, provincial election, and please talk to your MLAs about that.
Well, you know, they tried decriminalizing in Oregon, section 110, I believe, quite a few years ago. And decriminalized drugs, and now as of Sunday, last Sunday, they criminalized them again because there's no better. So that's where the problem is. We have criminals running around using drugs and having no repercussions for it. And giving them a nice place to shelter, not to change it our way.
Great, thanks, sir. Any comments from the?
So the decrim that I talked about was, pushed forward, January 31st, 2022, on a 3-year pilot program. There was a beginning, there's no middle, there's nothing, there's no tracking, there's nothing. We have a 3-year pilot project on a drug, and they're not keeping stats, tracking, nothing. We went down to UBCM last year, and just about every community went to the minister and met with her and said, well, if we're doing a pilot program, and I'm sure other people have been involved in pilot programs, how do you know if it's working if there's no numbers to follow? They refused to take any numbers. They said, look, we'll have the dashboard ready for you next week. Numbers will be in there and we'll be ready to go. They told that to every community that helped. We got home 2 days later, she was on the news saying we're not going to be doing that. So we have another 1.5 years of a decrim program that has no numbers, no direction, no nothing. And we suffer with this. And it is a community killer. And we are trying our best to have this repealed. And one of the reasons that I want to meet with John Rustad is because he's committed to remove it. So that's why we are the first ones to be meeting with John. I met with him 3 times on this, and he will remove the decrim because it is the first step to getting our communities back to have peace. But I don't know how you have a pilot program with absolutely no information at the end of 3 years.
You know, ultimately there has to be some form of repercussion for the people.
Yeah. So next
Okay,
time,
let's let Cynthia, anything to add?
Thank you. Yeah, so I think Prince George just recently signed a memorandum of understanding between the federal, provincial, indigenous, regional, and city governments. Looking for more services for people in their community, mental health services, rehab services. This is an area, you know, I come from both a policing and a healthcare background. And, you know, 20 years ago, they shut every institution in this country, basically, and put people out into the world who did not have the resources or support to be able to keep themselves safe and function healthy in a healthy society. So we don't have in Merritt, really anywhere, the appropriate services to help the people that need to get help. And I think that is something that you need to consider when you are talking to people in provincial and federal government. Again, these are not municipal issues. We don't deal with these things, but provincially healthcare is an issue that you need to think about.
Okay, so before I go to you now, just a reminder, if you can't stand and you want to ask a question, put up your hand and we'll send Holly with the microphone to you. Okay, Dan, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Diane Rainer, and if you got Harold, you'll know that I had some trouble at our office, Merritt's in. And we have quite a problem there. And I am very happy to say that everyone answered me about that day, but I have to say, in 6 days, the police were called 3 times. And in 6 days, no one was removed. And one guy almost died and given, you know, Narcan. But the most vulnerable people in this community are our seniors and our children. And the daycare is across the street witnessing these people, you know, shooting up and saying, why are they over there seizing or whatever? But that isn't the biggest problem. The biggest problem to me is they're committing a criminal offense. It's a criminal offense, and yes, I get that the court is doing nothing, but they need to be picked up and removed from the very place that we live and children are. If businesses can't survive, if children can't go out on the street, what are we doing? Like, we have to make a move towards creating a more safer environment. We need a barrier, a high barrier for these individuals to abide by. They're all riding new bikes. We know they're not theirs. We know they're stolen. We know they're wearing new clothes. They have nicer clothes than me, some of them. And I am locked in my building being threatened almost weekly because I reported them. That's my.
Hi, I'm Ron McDonald. I own 2549 Midland. It's a place of business. Over the last 6 years, there's an increase of property crime, vandalism, breaking and entering. Basically, I have customers' cars in my care and custody, and they've been kind of beaten up, and windows broke, and door locks tore off, and we get them on camera, or simply have been very cooperative. I actually have my cameras available to the RCMP if they'd like to monitor them. We had one fellow last night, another whole issue there again. When we moved there 14 years ago, we were required to get a development permit. Now, at that point in time, it was told to me that this was a gateway into the city, and therefore the city Christian community plan wanted to have certain aesthetic to the gateway. So it looks like BC Housing has kind of got into everybody's pocket here, and that's a big lump that we're gonna have to deal with. And you know, they circumvent the Christian community plan. They add expense to any taxpayer in this town. I'm not preaching vigilantism, but the mood in this room is basically, we're not that far away from it. I have real empathy for the RCMP being, it has 17 members, they are understaffed. They are not. They can't do a proper rotation shift like they used to back in the day. Merritt was a different place then, but you know, these people that go out and commit the crimes, they're active at 11 o'clock to 4 in the morning. And how many are on site during that time? Yeah, because all they did.
Hey, sir, that's your time.
Okay, well, anyway, please give the BCM and all those guys really a bad time, and we need to fix this song. Thank you.
So, that's the conversation that I'm having is that we need to have a group, a large group that deals with this monthly or weekly or whenever we have to get the message to BC Housing. When things start to go wrong, we have to move immediately. And we're more than willing to have that happen because we just simply cannot leave things alone. We have to be together on this.
Hey, go ahead, man.
I'm just sorry, so we're being told that the Shelter Society is your official liaison for any issues. So in addition to the group that the mayor is discussing, if you have an issue with something going on at the shelter, contact them. If they do not respond in a timely fashion, contact BC Housing. If you do not get a response from BC Housing, please call my office. I want to track this. I want to know what their responses are. Even if you do get a response and it's not to your satisfaction, please let us know because we need to hold their feet to the fire. People need places, safe places to live, but we all, yeah, I live in Diamond Vale. I bought a house very recently in Diamond Vale. I have 3 children. I am in the same situation as many of you. I need them to run this shelter the way they are telling us they are going to run it with safety and security that they are promising to us. If we're not seeing that and we're not getting the responses you want, please bring that to us. I will give a briefing to council and they will be your voice.
Okay, So just a clarifying question, how do they communicate with BC Housing? Will that be on the website?
So for those of you that got the package, on the back page of the BC Housing responses, there is, for questions about the shelter program, neighbors can contact NVSSS. There's an email address there. Neighbors are also welcome to email communityrelations@bchousing.org with their questions. So if you want to please share those responses with us, or any lack of response with us, we need to know about it. Much like if you see a crime, please call the RCD.
Linda, before you go to this lady with the question, can I ask you, can you put those email addresses on the screen? So that people know how to communicate. Okay, go ahead, Matt.
They didn't provide them to us. You should ask her. We sent them out.
Okay, so go ahead.
Okay, hi, my name is Lily Park. I live in the Merritt area of Canada. I have this here, so hopefully I can say everything quickly and not go over time. I would first and foremost like to agree with several people that I have heard who mentioned that this homeless shelter should not be in the community, it should be somewhere else that is more remote. I do agree with that. I think that would be healthier for everyone involved. Now, my first point is I come from a viewpoint of compassion based on my own family background and experiences. My second point is I still see this as a problem. I'm going to unpack point one quickly, and then I'll get to point two. Point one, my own grandmother was, for a short time, a drug addict and prostitute on Hastings Street until my uncle went and found her and punched out and rescued her and took her home, and she got clean, and we got to see her 200 days. My other uncle has AIDS and frequently train hops because he was in the foster care system, but he is clean now and volunteering. I have relatives who I will not name. I have had them live with me and help them get clean, or at least challenge them to get a job. I currently have a young woman living with me. She is a handful, she is 22, and she doesn't want to admit she has a problem with drinking, and she is one of the ones awake at 11 until 4 a.m. But with a lot, sometimes people do change. I do come from a point of compassion. I am not uncompassionate towards these people. My own family are these people. I could have been these people. I ate other trash cans before. However, I do see a very, very real problem, and I do believe that our government needs to be held accountable and things need to change. Because if the government is not aware of this simple concept, every child is taught by their parents when they are young that the friends you make matter. Because who you hang out with will have a huge impact on you. They influence you. And a community is influenced by the people in it. And we do, as a human species, fall to the lowest common denominator. It's just a fact. I have recently witnessed many people, some of my friends and some of my own family, who have been showing anger, bitterness. And I do see a huge shift in people's mentality. They see people not working hard and getting rewarded. They see people and they don't understand the struggles they face. All they see is the free handouts they get. And they don't want to work hard anymore either. If the government wants a society of angry, rebellious, uncooperative, and very poor work ethic people, and continue shifting the blame and continue putting people here who need to have housing, free housing. Okay. When I spoke to one of my family members, he mentioned that he thought communism was a very good idea. He was liberal and NDP. I know this is not a political forum, however, homelessness is a direct result and symptom of our political stance. The reasons he cited are because not everybody has a fair shake of life, not everybody has the ability to do the same work, not everybody has an opportunity for fair education, you know, higher education. And while I agreed with all his comments, I did tell him, my dear fellow, in this Mennonite community, you are sadly mistaken, because when you're in a socialist community, in a communist community, what ends up happening is they get you hooked on free handouts, and then they take them away because the people on the very top rung are just as greedy as anybody else, and they take everything and give you crumbs. So you need to learn to stand on your own 2 feet and work. And the work ethic will change. You will see our community shift and fall beneath the line. If we continue to allow this to happen, I vote very strongly that we do help. We put them outside of the community where children are safe, elderly are safe, and we don't affect our overall community.
And if there's anyone in the audience, you can't stand and come to the mic, raise your hand and we'll get a microphone to you. There's lots of big connected pieces, but let's remember to try to stay focused right on the proposed shelter on your property.
Right, my name is Glenn Mills, I live at 1658 Armstrong. My question is more of a practical question for council. I have worked in the downtown side, I have worked in Wally. So I have been compassionate with folks who find themselves in these situations. But I'm also concerned about the case mix of this group. What you're gonna find here are people putting down corrections with 6-10 orders. Reaching home is the people that don't qualify for the health authorities complex needs beds. They're the ones that shouldn't be near schools or their own children. Sometimes they get mixed in with people who ended up in that situation for the, myriad of reasons. What it seems, kind of unfolding across the province is because of the toxic drugs, which are horrific and preying upon really people, they're causing brain injuries. Those brain injuries lead to behavior. And health authorities have closed their doors to those people. They're excluded. My question to the council is, what's your contingency plan when the person's walking down the street with a machete? Are the police gonna come every single time? Is the hospital gonna take them every single time and de-escalate? So we're safe. And I understand that again, I am supportive of housing. Fundamentally, it's the principle I believe everybody deserves a chance. I'm not talking about that group of people. I'm talking about the other ones that get all mixed up in there. And it makes police's job impossible. It makes other social services jobs impossible. I know for sure the shelter organization has no words. We require this council to really advocate that there's somewhere for those people to go every single time, both friendly faces and help. We're talking daily admissions. So I want to hear what your plan is for that.
Okay, thanks. So that's a little broad, but I'll see if you want to respond.
Well, I'll have to be honest with you, the plan would be, if somebody's walking down the street with a machete, we're gonna have to call the RCP, I mean, that's the standard way you go. Do we have a contingency plan, for housing? That's not us, that's agency housing. We're a council, we make laws, we divide laws. We're here to hear what you have to say, but what we can do is advocate to the government and say, here's what there's no way they can be missing what's going on in all of the streets and all of these towns and cities through BC. There's just no way they can be missing. That's why we're going to be asking for the government to start looking at using crown land. You've got land. Let's use that land. Let's create something. At the end of Toronto Highway in Kamloops is an old residence. I think it's 2,400 rooms that have sat empty for 35 years. Why is that not redone? Why is that not redone to put people in those buildings? It sits there in a box and they pay for security for 35 years. So we need the government, provincially and federally, to start giving up some land, putting people where they need to be, taking those who want help, give them help. And you're right, my son-in-law in 2022 died of fentanyl overdose. I did everything I could with him. There was no way I could change him. I took him to 7, 8 rehabs. He relapsed in rehab. There was no saving him. You're right, the mind does strange things. We get to a point now where some people have abused drugs to the point where they can't be responsible for their own decisions anymore. We need to decide for them, or groups need to decide for them when they need to be in care. I don't know if you saw the story the other night, but because of prolonged brain damage from drugs, they're talking about putting these people in seniors homes now. that is not going to fly with. So that's where we need, as a provincial, as a local government, to address the situation that we need a housing plan that's gonna work. We have Minister Cologne talking about all of this housing. It's not affordable to anybody. It's just getting houses on the lawn. It's not for, nobody's gonna be able to afford that. So we need a concrete plan. What is your plan and what is the time limit for it? How do we get there? So that is the contingency plan of council, is to advocate for this community to make life better. Maybe with this group, we become the first community that actually hits that goal.
Folks, we have about half an hour left for questions. I want to give at least 10 minutes for council to have any closing comments and thoughts. Holly, I see you almost right behind you, there's a hand in the audience. Folks, so questions, ideas, you want to be involved, try to keep it focused on the Nicola thing, and maybe if it's a different topic than what we've heard already. Sir.
Just wanted to bring up a point of information. I appreciate, my friend Cynthia have asked BC Housing to talk to the school district. I can tell you as board chair, as of 7:20 tonight, we've heard about this from.
So I'll let you know that I will be getting in contact with them because we need to talk to you. We need to talk to the daycare centers. And believe it or not, we also have to talk with their plan because there's Zions even there. So we have to be aware of all those things. So, you will be getting in contact. Yes, we'll connect with you. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna go to this gentleman and then the person in the back. Holly, did you already deliver the microphone? Oh,
This is the microphone.
oh, sorry, okay, this gentleman and then we'll go to the hand in the middle.
Hello, my name is Doug Fleming, I'm partner director. Obviously, by looking at this trial, this is probably the most important issue facing this community right at this moment. As a council, you're going to UCM in just a week or two. There's a provincial election coming up. Mr. Lowry referred to who works for who. You as a council need to remind the province and ministers who they're working for. I don't think you know as a council how powerful you are through the UBCM. Mr. Mayor, you have a fire in your belly, and you have other mayor friends that are facing the same problem. You need to get together, the mayors of the communities, and express that global opinion of the UBCM. And you need to meet with the province, not one at a time, one mayor, one council. You'll be defeated every time. A team of mayors and a representation of councils will make a difference. I think it's really important that you learn the power of the UBCM and you use the power of the UBCM. That's what.
So I'll respond to your questions. It's very well known that I am very unhappy with our healthcare system. I sent them a bill. I've asked many of the mayors to join me in this over the period of 18 months. They will not join with me. They will not join with me because they feel that I'm one of the first ones that asked for the mandates to be lifted. That turned me into a black sheep almost instantly. So they will not associate with me to a certain degree because their constituents are not happy with some of my outlook. Now, when we do get to UBCM, the mayors of all of the affected communities with the hospitals that have been closed will be getting together. Now, what is that going to actually do with us 5 weeks from an election? I don't know, but at least we will be meeting, and it's the first time that I managed to, with the help of the mayor's idea, because if I had suggested it, it would do. So we do know the power of UBCM. We also know the power of FCM, and that's who we use as well.
What does that stand for?
Federation of Canadian Municipalities. That looks after everybody in Canada. But it's federal, and that's where, but you also have to understand some of the justice issues and, Staff Sergeant Woodwell, we need bail reform and we need some justice changes. So somebody doesn't get shot in the head with a gun, you keep them both out. And the guy says, I'm not gonna press charges. That's the end of it. But we've got people that are 28 times. We need some decent bail reform. We need the federal government to work with our RCMP and untie their hands so they can do the job that they're put there to do.
I hope you don't hang up all of your hopes on one candidate from one party.
Okay,
I think you should leave with three candidates of three parties.
okay, there's no microphone. Let's go to the question, in the middle there. Go ahead, whoever that is.
Good evening. My name is Tammy George. I live on Ransom, the corner of Ransom and Armstrong. I've lived in Merritt for 21 years. I've seen a lot of stuff. But what I'm standing up for here tonight is I'd like to say thank you to everybody sitting up there. You are in the hot seat. We appreciate you. As much as it doesn't feel like it sometimes when we phone City Hall and say blah, 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 blah. But I want everybody in this room to take a look around and pat yourself on the back. We, right here, are a community. We're here, we're not screaming and yelling at each other. We're not screaming and yelling at you. We're listening. We're trying to make a better situation out of what we have. Nothing we say in this room tonight is going to change the outcome. We can work together and try and make it better. But it's already done, and now we need to work on the uphill battle. But I would just like to say, everybody here, congratulations. We're having a decent conversation with no arguing, no profanities. I'm proud to say that I'm a Merrittonian. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Go ahead, ma'am. And I'm gonna suggest, maybe one or two more, if there's somebody else, but by 10 to 8, we'll turn it over to closing comments.
Hello. My name is Jenna Godley, and I'm here, you took the word right out of my mouth. Yeah, Jenna, are we better? Go ahead. So I have been in this town for about 3.5, almost 4 years. My family's been here 20. I moved here after living in the middle of nowhere up in Nunavut in Northern Ontario on reserves. I've been in small populations. I've dealt with running a grocery store in some of the worst conditions in Canada, unsafe water, unsafe all of that. All that to say, I may be young, but I do have a little bit of background behind me. I'd like to echo what Tammy said and say thank you to all of you for serving the community. I want to thank you for doing what you can. I do recognize as well that your hands are high. What I would like to bring forward, if I can be so bold, is to kick a hornet's nest. I'm a person of business. In business, if you don't have the tools to do your job, you go to your manager, you go to your supervisor, you say, I need the tools to do my job. You guys as council need to be going to the province, to the federal government and saying, look, we're trying to run this community with 17 police officers. We're trying to run it with, at last count, I'm not sure, 1, 2 bylaw officers. We do not have the resources to do what BC Housing is asking us to do. When you're talking about communities and being able to take care of people, I agree with a lot of the people that have spoken today. We're not against the people. People are in bad situations. Unfortunately, in the small community, the resources that we are given are not the same as they are in big communities. Big communities have the ability to multiply. Same with big business. Walmart has way better buying power than Farm Save. You're gonna save on Tylenol because they can.
Comments? Feedback? Anything to respond to that? Okay. Okay, thank you. Actually, can I have that back?
Just a reminder, folks, I know there's an election next month, but let's keep it focused on the shelter and the collab. Ma'am,
Awesome, thank you so much. My name is Stevie Legier and I live on Lindsay Street, about 2 blocks from where the proposed shelter is going to be. I'm 23 years old. I often don't feel safe in my own neighborhood already, and obviously this is something that is posing another challenge to me, but I do believe that everyone deserves to have a roof over their head and be have compassion. A few things I do want to mention is that if we do want to take a solutions-based approach to this, I feel that we do need to have some kind of means for communication so that misinformation and information doesn't spread so quickly within our community. And this is an excellent example of that, but I think we need to figure out how to do this more often and kind of more continuously. And something I will ask as well, and this is just kind of a rhetorical question since BC Housing isn't here. But if BC Housing doesn't see community conversations as an effective means of community engagement, then what do they see as effective means? Have they kind of relayed that to you in any way?
Written communication. So those people who are within their zone that they consider neighbors of the shelter apparently have received written communication. So Holly and I, one of the Hollier than that, to my right hand people, we were on the phone with BC Housing. Since we got them to confirm this, we've been on the phone with them repeatedly, asking for the support, and we were told yesterday, they do not find this type of communication to be effective. They recognize we've already committed, so we should go ahead and do it. You see how I'm offended by that?
Yeah.
And that they would be sending out written communication to the affected neighbors.
Okay, this seems pretty effective if you ask me, but I'm not the boss. Okay, my next point is that I did have a conversation with the owners of the Nice Inn, and his reasoning for allowing it to be in that location is that they basically came to him and said that if it isn't here, it's gonna be across the street, so that affects his value as a business owner and as a business. So if it wasn't there, it would still be in the neighborhood, is my understanding. And one final question is, does the 67 people that you mentioned who are unhoused in Merritt, does that include people who are precariously housed or at risk of experiencing homelessness in the near future? And I do know that the Nice Inn has 20 rooms, and that is a total of 37 beds, and that does not account for 30 of the 67 unhoused individuals mentioned. So kind of what is the plan with them? Does BC have to address that?
So the owner not wanting to go across the street was pretty happy to get what he's gonna get, right? So I mean, let's be honest here. We've been told that he wasn't gonna do this, he wasn't gonna do this, and all of a sudden they waved the checkbook and boom,
Yes.
here it goes. So let's not be unclear on this. If it had gone across the street, he would have missed out.
Absolutely, and I'm not standing up for him, I'm just standing up for the fact that it would be in the community, in the neighborhood anyways.
So in response to that, we are being told up to a maximum of 40 beds will be available. They still haven't done their full assessment of how many beds they can get in. There are some multiple like bedroom suites, I guess, what I understand, some 2 bedrooms. Those people who are not housed in the shelter because there's insufficient room, we will have to continue based on the precedent that's been set through case law. We have to continue to allow overnight sheltering somewhere in the community. And again, this might be something we need to reevaluate around where this sheltering overnight can happen.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, right.
Hi, my name is Bailey. I am a 4th generation Merrittonian. My children are 5th. I chose to raise my family here. I have made a life here, as many of us have done. I'm coming in to you today with a bit of thought. Over the last 4 days, I met with 6 different clients. I am a realtor here in Merritt who cried with me, who held my hand, who are scared to live in their neighborhoods. And I looked at them all and I don't really have the answers. So I want someone to give a name to. They want to sell, but we're talking property values. I also am coming to you today as a former employee for the Nicola Valley Shelter Support Society. I worked endless hours with people on the street. I think my one today would be if BC Housing is going to lean on MBSS to help run the shelter. Who's on the board? Do we have enough people there? Do we have different minded people there? And, you know, I think that was one big challenge. There was at times 2 people on the board. And if we're leaning on them and you have certain people making decisions and not everybody who's in this room, I mean, everyone's shown up for a reason today. So I think that we need to be involved. I for one would help, and I think everybody knows that I'm a real volunteer in this community. But I thought you all should know that we have concerned residents who are leaving the city because of this, and they're worried about their property values. And they're calling us, and I'm just one agent here who is getting these calls, but when they're crying to me, I need an avenue to send them.
So, thank you, Bailey, and, for anybody who doesn't know, Bailey is the best ambassador for the city of Merritt. It's real simple. If anybody comes to you and wants a contact, that would be me. Any point in time, my number and everything is right underneath my name. They can come into the office anytime they want. I'm always there. If not, I will go and see them. So I'm more than happy to be the center point of contact for anything in this community, because that's my job. And the other thing is, contact, if you see a counselor, it's happened before. A counselor has been approached, hey, what about this, they bring it back to the rest of the council and discuss it. So council, we work for you guys, right? That's the way it is. So I'm more than happy to take those points of concern. But I will honestly tell you, no matter where you go in this province right now, every city has the same issue that we're having. And that's why we need to come up with a plan that's gonna work.
No, and I agree. I think that everyone's got this issue.
Microphone, if it's really brief.
Sorry, all listen.
Thank you, Bailey. Bailey's one of the first people I met in town, walked on, she's now walking, I was exploring the city. They have, this is a question we brought to BC Housing just yesterday as well. They're promising us 24/7 for staff. This is a high stress job that is dramatically underpaid. Right? People burn out from these kinds of caregiving roles very, very quickly. How, we asked them, how will you manage more staff at any given time? Oh, we can pay overtime, we can do this, we might hire outside security if we have to. And again, they did say to me, it's not in their budget to provide us any additional funding to support the community, but they can do this. Where are they going to find people? Will they open if they don't have full staff complement? Although we will, but these are the things that, again, the group that the mayor wishes to bring together. These are the questions that we have to make them answer, and then we have to hold their feet to the fire on these things. If the fence is not up, what are we gonna do? If they're not enough staff, what are we gonna do? You know, we have to hold them to their promises.
Thanks. Go ahead, Sean.
Hello. Where is the owner of the nightstand?
It's not.
Just take it in, sir.
We're
We just need your names.
I am a concerned citizen of Merritt.
Okay, number.
Do you think it's important to have him as part
Well,
of?
I don't control what he does. Did you talk to him? Did you invite him? He wasn't invited. He chooses not to be. There's no representation from the next. They were asked to be. So, sorry, but it's not my day to encounter.
Earlier you mentioned that your solutions, your ideas for solutions were around having conversations with people, but it doesn't seem that we can say.
So we're gonna start that, and it doesn't happen instantly. There's time that you need to build this. That's why we have a thing called committees, people join, and then we move forward with it. It just doesn't happen instantaneously, just doesn't. If you'd like to run down how council works, I'll be more than happy to take you through it. Because we want to get there, but we have to start it first. He was invited, yes. So.
Okay, thank you, Ron. Go ahead, sir. You take my name and.
My name's Ryan. I wanna ask where the people from the tent supposed to go? And does the city have any plan to have a liaison with the people in the camp? Or any position to end the homelessness instead of going to the shelter, which discriminates against people. You won't help couples. They started the camp. They beat people, abuse them. They got them sick. So there needs to be somebody through the city that actually has motivation to get these people into the homes. Because the shelter has no motivation to put them into homes, then they lose their clients. Right? They have people that have been there for long term. Shouldn't be. That's not an option, it should be more than 3 days, so.
So, sir, I appreciate your comments. But the journey starts with the individual wanting to change. That's where the journey starts.
Yeah, it's
We-
difficult for
we
them
as
to
a
do when
city-
they're being asked to move every day.
Because it's part of the Bible. This is a social choice some people have made. Well, unfortunately, for some people it is.
I know
I can tell you,
that they lost their homes to domestic abuse, they've lost their homes
we
to
understand
fire,
that,
but
we understand that, but people have to want to change in order for this, and again, just so you understand, as a city, that's not our bailiwick. You need to be talking to a provincial official on what they need to do to make this happen. As a city, we're following bylaws. We have a spot for tents where they need to be, if they need to be. That's what we were supposed to do, and we did it.
But with the shelter not opening until October, where are they supposed to go to?
Again, that's where you. Yeah, Nicole, but, also the point of the matter is, that's a conversation for BC Housing, and that's why we wish they would be here tonight. Now, we can get you in contact with BC Housing to get that question. I'm not sure if you would like us to do that. I'd be more than happy to send an email in your name, come back to me, and I'll come and find you, and I'll let you know, because yes, what are they going to do? I'm sure people don't want to wake up every morning like that, they want to have a better life. So how do we help them get there? But the first step, as with my son-in-law, was take the first step and ask for some help. Because we can't help you if you don't want it.
Okay, let's answer your question.
Closed from the flood still,
Sure,
and with that, there was tenting allowed there. If it's still closed, you should be allowing tenting somewhere.
So we do allow overnight sheltering in their Fallen Park as per the bylaw. Okay. Playground Turkey Park has not finished with its services. There is a dike going in there, fingers crossed, next year. As well as the bridge construction, which makes it very difficult to access that area. So there is no camping available in that particular site. And I 100% sympathize with you. The mayor and I sometimes have different ways of approaching this. There are people who are making life choices. There are people who are living circumstances we cannot imagine who brought them to this place. However, whether they're residential school survivors, abuse survivors, people are out there that can't afford houses and they're working. Right? So we actually, the city, and I think Mayor forgets about this, we are working on trying to develop some housing that is accessible to people. You can't call it affordable because affordable housing, the definition nationally. Yeah, sorry, attainable, Mayor likes the word attainable. Affordable housing, the national definition for affordable housing that is 30, no more than 30% of your household income. That includes your taxes, your mortgage or rent, and your utilities and your insurance. So less than 30%. I can tell you that my house is more than 30% of our household income. So how do other people who are working minimum wage jobs afford this, right? So you're right, housing is a big spectrum that we need to deal with, and it's being downloaded to the municipal government.
But if you want that part to be kept.
Sir,
you
we're
should
down,
allow-
we're limited on time.
Come see me tomorrow, come see me in my office tomorrow, okay? Yeah.
You would still have 33 seconds left.
That was actually that was the second two.
Go ahead, sir.
Hello, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Adam Ware. I live on 2675 Garcia Street. As you know, I have lots of questions. I'm asking you to build a fence around Paula Park. We're allowing homes to camp for the safety and privacy of the residents around it, being ourselves. And the Bedford parking, reason being, often come to the park to encampments to look for individuals, they jump the fence, they run through my property.
I think live there.
I live there too.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. We don't know who these people are who are running through my property. All I want is a fence built for the security and privacy of the residents around it. Okay, they push the fence down, they do all their business in the ditch, it's full of garbage and everything else. The sitting area for Bedford Apartments, which was just built, gets taken over them by the homeless people at night, throughout the day, whatever.
So I'm asking you to build a fence, a right-of-way fence, and maybe the Ministry of Housing can pay for this as well. We can put the gas down. I see a lot of tents moving right now from location A right into the park. I know the bylaw is not being enforced. I would just like an update as to what's happening here, how long they might remain, if this bylaw will be enforced for them to decamp between 8 in the morning and 7 at night. And I know we gotta work together. I know this isn't going anywhere. But you talk about the safety of your police, bylaw officers, shelter people, gang violence in the parking lot. And now you move a little closer to the residences, like, what about the security and safety of us? So, we've had about 150 phone calls on this, and again, I appreciate your patience on this. We are discussing fencing until the situation changes. We understand that needs to happen. So again, I do want to thank you for your patience, and I know it's been a rough go. We are trying to make some changes. That spot is not the optimum spot for this to be. So give us the time to make the changes. Fencing is what we're talking about to keep everybody safe is what we're talking about. So again, but I do appreciate your patience.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
So these two ladies are the last questions, and then we'll look for wrap up.
I just wanted to follow up on what the mayor said about Nights In were handed a check and built this Japanese garden supplied by BC Housing money. And I'm a neighbor of Nights In, and I'm extremely concerned and absolutely disgusted that this is happening on a street where people come into town. And BC Housing doesn't care. They just hand money, and Nights In took the money. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Bonnie. I live in Diamond Vale. Where I live is nobody's business. You keep saying about BC Housing, they won't come here, they're too scared to come to Merritt. So how about if you put an invitation out to them to have a police escort,
You speak right into the microphone.
to have a police escort to the meeting?
Well, the point of the matter is we don't need a police escort. Anybody.
So let's make sure.
Again, but the point is they would be welcome here as anybody else. You can yell at me all day long, it's not gonna hurt me. So it's the level of courage you're willing to show for what you're
I understand that.
So
So
they
my
may
point
want
is
to-
encourage-
We even offered them Zoom, so they could do it over Zoom, and they said no.
Okay, and also,
Okay, go ahead.
everybody keeps saying propose. Is it not in writing? It is. Our understanding from BC Housing is it is leased. They leased the entire facility, they have taken, I think there are still people living there until mid-month, but the lease began in the beginning of September. And so they have started doing some, they have some repairs and some upgrades that they need to do around the fire system and things like that, and fencing that we're asking of them. And security cameras, but essentially they are the seats of the property at this time. So yes, you're right, it is in writing. We did let them know that there would be RCP presence at this meeting, so that Secretary Roder would be able to be here to ask questions and if necessary. I do want to remind people, and this is just because it's really important, is that these are employees of the government. They are not the deputy minister or the minister. So they have the right to a safe workplace. That includes, not that I think anybody's gonna be physically violent with them, but that includes verbal violence and verbal abuse. So, now again, that they don't have to come if they're in a situation where they feel like they're gonna be verbally or abused. That's just their right as employees. So that may be what they were anticipating. I can't imagine that they thought they would get jumped in the parking lot. But that is something they're allowed to refuse on safe work. One more very quick thing.
Hey, really great thing, I try to get one more.
Where did all the money come from? From my pocket? It came from BC Housing funding. And we pay into that. You, I have no right to take our money like that. You pay for your provincial taxes, the government that you allow to spend that money as they see fit.
Okay, we have one more question, and then we are wrapping up by 8 o'clock, folks, so I'm gonna, because we're a little bit ahead of time, one last question here.
Hi, my name is Del Smith, I lived in Merritt for roughly 36 years. And I know about pretty well here, so I work at Save On Foods. Yeah, I work at Save On Foods, the majority of it. The young, the old, the kids, the elderly. And when I came here in '85, I never seen so much dysfunction in the community, and I know what goes on in Salmon and everywhere else, okay? So, when you say at the beginning of this meeting, they are gonna go in to 910, we can put 12-foot fences up. Okay, but you said they can come and go. Well, if I look across the desert again, they can come and go, what's gonna make that change? The problems in this town. I've seen elderly people that have helped. Some of these people I see come from the shelter, run up to their vehicles, harass them for money, up in their face. They're taxpayers. They pay taxes to the city, they pay taxes to the government. And I think it's time that all the cities, or something needs to happen, where they stand up to the government, and I agree with what someone said before, when I'm in the outskirts of the town, respect the people that pay for the community, they're poor, the people come in, and we want to. Yes, we people have a right, but we have a right too. And we pay for it, and we pay for all you guys' jobs. So you guys, as city council, what are you gonna do when this place doesn't work? What are you gonna do? Let the government operate another hotel? So you guys need to step up too. On behalf of our city.
That is the whole idea of forming a focus group that works to make sure this works, and that's what we have to do. And that's what we'll continue to do, but you have to understand the fact that, we're a local government, not a provincial government. We didn't pick this spot, we didn't write the check. We weren't even informed until you guys found out that was going on. So now we have to, do our part and advocate to make sure that this runs correctly. And you're right, what happens if the same thing happens? You're right, so that's the question we need to ask, and we're going to ask it. I've got a 6-year-old granddaughter, I'm concerned, I've got a 36-year-old daughter, I'm concerned, we're all concerned. We'll do the best that we can, that's exactly all we can do.
So with that, we're gonna wrap up by 8, but I'd like to turn it over to CAO and council for any closing comments, reflecting what you heard tonight, any key messages, anything that you want to say in terms of next steps. So maybe we'll start at the end there. Oh. Yeah.
Hello? Yeah, I have to concur with many of the comments that were said here tonight, and I appreciate everybody coming out and sharing their concerns, voicing their opinions. I think that the mayor as well as the CAO pretty much explained that we don't have a lot of control over what BC Housing does. So it's easy for everybody to say, you know, well, yes, we try to represent you who have elected us the best that we can. And that's what we're gonna do when we go down to UBCM in a couple of weeks. That's what we do every day when we meet. So, you know, you should start coming out to some more meetings. We should have more of these town halls because we do value your opinions. Thank you.
Hi, and so, my role here, so just a friendly reminder that it's not you, the community, and us as council. We are in the same boat. So, and I can guarantee you that when there was the presentation, BC Housing presentation, we opposed. We said, no, we raised our voice, your voice. But we later or soon, I learned that they are immune to all these bylaws. What I can see now is that the province provincial law versus Hawaii law, the provincial law will prevail. But the nice thing is any other business, any local business, and we will make sure that if all the bylaws are followed, now that the new location has been chosen. So do I feel that it's gonna be better? I feel like BC Housing has created a precedent with the desert inn, and I don't like it. Do I hope that it's gonna be better? I hope. But we want to make sure that we will make sure that as a council, that that business will follow all the restrictions, all the bylaws, to make sure that we will have the result. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. Like most of you, this is our home, this is where we live. Some of you weren't here, I was. Hearing about this being so close and finding out about it 5 minutes before it's open is very upsetting to all of us. We share the same concerns that you do. We see the problems in the community. People being harassed, threatened, intimidated by these people. Before coming to this meeting, even at my office, we had the door locked. Last time, I'm pretty sure somebody was smoking something illegal in our guest washroom. We understand the concerns. We are the community. We're not against anybody. We're happy that you're all here. We're grateful for your comments. And if you're mad, good, because we are too. We respect all your comments. We appreciate them. Please come to us with everything. We will fight, as the other councillors have mentioned, for our voice at the UBCM. Groups, task force to get together with the other groups. I'm part of the Southern Interior Local Government Association, where we're dealing with something else on a similar situation for reforms in other areas. And we will as a group fight as hard as we can with the loudest of voices. Thank you very much.
As a community, we need to stand together and we need to hold BC Housing accountable. So all of your voices need to be raised at all times to make sure this thing is successful. I'd like to thank everyone for coming out tonight. It's a great crowd and we do understand your concerns. We as council also have great concerns. Council is not against homelessness, but we are against the criminality, violence, and theft that is associated with homelessness. That's a great concern. I'm very concerned for the citizens that are close proximity to the Night's Inn. The theft and vandalism that could take place. Businesses that are close to this Night's Inn. They don't have the insurance that is going to cover the vandalism and theft that is going to take place. So those are concerns with both businesses and residents. And I personally feel that we really have to look at areas where they should be situated. But we are constrained by BC Housing. And as it's being said earlier tonight, we don't have that choice. But hopefully communities can band together, not just Merritt, but all the communities within this province band together, go to the provincial government and say, we are not happy with the situation. It's the only way that the government will understand that they can't walk into a community and dictate what they want. Thank you, Jane, for coming on.
Thank you for coming out and just have talked to Staff Sergeant Rhoda and his members. We have I've been retired now from RCP for 7 years and things have changed. Policing is different. We have to stand up as a community and look out for each other. So thank you.
I have 2 minutes. I just want to say thank you to everybody for coming out. I understand your frustrations. And I'm around to yell at any point in time. I'm fine with it. I like the passion. I like the fact that you are concerned about your community. And I don't know anybody who would feel safe in this room because passion is a good thing. Passion makes things happen. Your voices are heard. And I want to thank the people that have helped and worked around the desert and it's been a tough go. One thing that I will say is use us, use the RTMP, please don't do anything that you might regret that might change your life in the future. We talked about vigilantism, probably a bad idea. I don't really think any of you want to throw your life in the garbage or something like this, so let's just all be calm. Come to the city, come to us, come to the RCMP, let's form a group, let's take this forward, let's make sure this works for our community. Thank you. If you have any other questions, you can, Bob, I think you're around here, someone talking about the same.